But yeah, so like during this phase, like I know you said you started to get into hip hop when you're like 8 or
Hmm.
around that point. So do you at that as also a desire to start like writing or anything like that, or is it just like as a fan of it all?
Nah, not really. No, not at that time. No, I did come up with like a little moniker. You know what I'm saying? I used my first and my last name. So my very first rap name, I guess you could get, it would have been Double UV. You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
Mm.
My name is William Vasquez. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
all
caught
the
it. I
names that
caught it. I
with
caught
an
it. I
E
caught it.
double.
I'm like,
Yep.
WV.
Yeah. Yeah, with
Bars.
VEE spelled out. VEE. But you had like, so those are the rap names back then. You had E double, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Uh
yeah, there were a lot of
you
doubles.
know what I
I
mean?
was
You know what it was now.
before I like was given Dutch, I was trying like and I was like drawing and like you'd put clothes on like your character at the end of a piece and whatnot. And I was always the guy that had like a character at the end of his piece. And like the clothing line was like double R because my name is Ronaldo Rivera. So it's just
Got
like
it.
double R. It's back then the doubles were super huge, super
Right.
huge. Everybody was double. If you had a reason for your double, I like the double U V.
I like
Mm,
that. That's nice.
double entendres.
Aha.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's good. So basically, yeah. So you're into the sports for a while. At what point do you like start to develop more of an interest in, I guess, not sports?
um all right. Well, uh but when I came back to New York in 1992, you know what I'm saying? My parents, they were divorcing. My father got locked up. You know what I'm saying? He would, go away to prison and stuff like that. So now my mom's a single mom. Um, I'm pretty, pretty mad and bitter. I'm going in the eighth grade. I got to come back in the eighth grade to you know what I'm saying, to a school with, minimal friends from my old neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? But enough to just kind of keep me like, all right, we know who he is. You good. What I would then start doing is, you know what I'm saying, shoplifting from stores and shit like that. Or, taking people's hats or, simple shit, Jan Sport strings.
I
I
bet you
remember
both. I was about to say. I bet you both those other things before you said Jansport strings was all polo, shoplifting polo from stores,
not yet, not
snatching
yet,
polo hats off of people's heads.
not yet. It was Macy's in Kings Plaza Mall. I came out with two pairs of Levi silver tabs. Like that's like
Silver
the
tabs
first,
was
like
huge. My guy.
that was the first real shit that I really, you know what I'm saying, I hustle out of a store, bro. And our clothes are all oversized. So what I did, I just kind of wrapped them around my waist, but have like the, the part where the buckles and where you fasten in the
Now
back.
you're
So it's
teaching.
kind of
Now you're teaching the young next generation how to boost propers.
not trying, man, I'm not trying to do that. But that's what I did. That, and from there, it would just be, trying to compete,
Yeah,
with your peers and
that's
stuff like that, trying
that's
to be
very typical for our environment as well.
right, trying to have shit, but have it first. You know what I'm saying? It's not
Yeah,
that you got silver tab,
Yo, this
yeah,
is
it's that
wild.
yeah,
you had it first.
So it's a
yeah,
Or
yeah. Big
culture.
fact.
So it's a culture of essentially waxing new fashion the fastest.
having new
Yeah,
music first. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. Everything is first in New York City. Like in New York
Yeah,
City,
So
bro.
you gotta be the first one. And it's not really like back then we don't have no internet. So like really, technically speaking, you're not really the first. You're just the first in your neighborhood, in your neck
Correct.
of the woods, in your group of friends. You're just the first in that. But like really, there's already clearly other people in other places doing the same thing, which is why these things even exist like that, right? Like they're being successful products and like they're like, okay, now we got to put Levi silver tabs everywhere. You know, it probably starts in the Macy's in Herald Square, which is their flagship store. And the next thing you know, they're like, oh, these are being really successful. We should probably dole it out to the Macy's in Kings Plaza, the Macy's in Parkchester in the Bronx, and you know, and
Yeah.
so on, and so like
As you're
people in
just
these neighborhoods.
Yeah, as you're saying all that, I wonder if these companies were like, there's probably some good money to be made in letting these kids steal this shit.
Absolutely.
Cause
I,
like
I,
that sounds like it ends up selling a lot more jeans down the line.
yeah, absolutely. I'll say this, like, you know what I'm saying, music was big. I would go on crusades to just try to get shit first around like 94, 95, right? You know, now hip hop is hip hop. It's prevalent, right? Um I'd go on crusades to get mixtapes. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know nothing about the subway. I hopped on the ferry in Staten Island. I got off Manhattan and I hopped on the M15 and took that shit all the
The
way up to
M the
125th.
M15 for people who are not from New York City, the buses are like in front of them. They have letters to describe the borough that they are. So if he would have been jumping on a on a bus in the Bronx, it'd be like BX12 or BX14 or BX some X Y and Z. If he
Yeah.
caught a bus in Brooklyn, it'd just be the B such and such. If he caught one in Queens, it'd be the QU or the Q. No, it's just the
It's
Q
just
in for
yeah.
the buses. So it'd be like the Q 114 or some shit like that. And like in Manhattan, it'd be the M for Manhattan, whatever number. So him saying the M, what was it that you grabbed?
I took the M15.
M15, the M15 immediately lets me know, like, okay, you were like riding into Manhattan all the way from Staten Island just to like find exclusive new shit, which is very like that's rare. Rarely back in the days do like people leave their boroughs. Like people kind of like have everything that they need, especially back in like the 80s and the 90s in their borough, and like they don't go into Manhattan unless it's like for like work purposes or like family, but like rarely do you find young people that were like, oh, I was going on missions just to get music. You know what I'm saying? Like that's an elite crowd.
Yo, so check this out. I get on that, I take it all the way to 125th from the ferry. That shit took like 2.5 hours, bro. And then I hop on the BX. I think it was the BX 45 or something like that. And you take it into Third Avenue and 149th.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
know what I'm
my
saying?
area
And
now.
there, and then from there, then you got all of the shops. So now at the same time, I'm on a crusade for music. I'm finding, oh shit, there's a Dr. J's or a VIM, or there's this shop. Like, okay, you know what I'm saying? I gotta come back up here to get more shit. Staten Island, like you said, where people don't really venture out of their borough to get stuff, people go to the barbershop and get the
Same.
same tapes
Everybody's
and the
got the same
CDs from the
shit. Yeah,
same
everybody's
right.
got the
Everybody
same
get the
shit.
same
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah,
And those
yeah.
guys would travel out to other boroughs, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Right. So I tried to be ahead of the curve all of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I could go. You mean I could get a North Face up here, or I could get my my Columbia suit up here for cheaper? Like you do that. That we be
Yeah.
on those 2 days. So it's just kind of all
Which, by the
intertwined.
way, I don't think that like actually like that is a super classic New York City right mentality of like if I can get it cheaper. But like when you think about the time that you put in, to like go in to get it, and time is money, technically speaking. It's like, was it cheaper in fact? You know what I mean? But it's like, nah, yes, because it was cheaper, it was a worthwhile time spent, and I discounted my time, sir. So
Yep. So after like doing that for 3 times, like I decided to read a subway map and learn the subway. Man, I'm back. I'm back on the 5 train. I'm back down by freaking City Hall in Bowling Green in like 30 minutes, man. I'm cutting my
yeah,
trip
I
in.
was gonna say when you were talking that initial story, I was just like the horror Like, oh my God, why are you taking buses all through Manhattan? Manhattan's so long, like with like the blocks. It's like you could have jumped on the train and saved yourself like at least a half hour, you know.
I didn't
But
know.
yeah,
I,
you're saying you're giving me the play by play to the point where you're
right.
like, this is like, but this is very back in the days, New York centric, right? Where like you learned a bus, like we learned mapping. Like I was just thinking the other day, like looking at the GPS and no, actually, instead of looking at the GPS, looking at the road in New Jersey and like the signage for like jumping on the interstate, and I'm just like, man, what happened to like before GPS and like when we had to like travel long distances with no real directions, you had to read like the signs on the road and you had to be like knowledgeable of how all signs work so that you knew where you were going. Like,
You had to use an
we don't
atlas.
even care about that no more. It's like nobody cares. It's like GPS, bitch.
Yep, yo, you used to have to go into either the gas station or you know what I'm saying, or whatever convenient, like a stationary store, and buy an atlas
Yeah,
or a road map.
I was
Yo,
gonna
I used
say an
to.
atlas and there was one that it was like McKinley,
Brand McNally.
Brand
Brand,
McNally,
I got you, baby.
Brand
I got you.
McNally. He remembers Brand McNally. Yo,
Brand
what?
McNally,
I got
and the
it
other
all
one was
mapped out. Brand McNally. Know what I mean?
and the other one
Woo!
was Hagstrom. Those were the two main atlases, Rand McNally and Hagstrom. Why do I know that?
Because it
Because it's
mattered at one time for you.
practical. I remember with the grids, and you had to like use quadrants to find like the locations for particular places, and then try to figure out where the fuck you were on the map, and then have to chart your own course. You were the Google Maps. Wild
You,
Yo,
times.
sir.
my first job ever was in the New York Public Library.
Say
So like those,
word.
that's a fact. It was my after school job. By then, I was having a kid. I had my oldest son who turns 27 tomorrow. By the way, you know what I'm saying.
Happy
Um,
birthday. If
Facts.
he watches this.
He's coming with me to my battles and all of that, bro. But
Facts.
yo,
Facts.
you know what I'm saying? By then, that was my first job. So like, learning, geography and stuff like that. I gotta, I got pretty savvy with it. And it just learned me how to get around to the city to get stuff. So, you're up there looking for, clothes, apparel, and you're up there looking for hip hop. And those were the two things that kind of took me out of my borough just to kind of remain exclusive. You learn where other things are. I then learned where downtown Brooklyn was. I then learned how to get to the Coliseum and got my gold fronts and a Mecca hoodie. You know what I'm saying? You would learn how to get, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, to certain places just to kind of stay above the curve for everybody.
Yo,
You
That's
know,
yo, it's
no, but
crazy
even
because
just to
this was
think
all
about what
about
you're
that.
saying, but even just to think about what you're describing, right? Like this a whole vibe where I don't think anybody's really walked down it like the way you're describing it, because I don't know that I talked to that many people from Staten Island before. I'm not gonna lie.
right.
So, the whole like having to travel out of it, but it makes me just kind of picture like life. Like even with the movie theaters back in the day, like the famous players would have different movies than the next dudes, and you would have to like pick the fucking movie theater that had the movie you wanted to see. Now everything's kind of mixed up together, so it's more convenient and shit. So it's like it's nifty just that you like don't know your own city in a sense because you have no reason to, and except for in your case you've explored it and are like, bro, I'm starting to chart New York City and shit like it's Pokemon Go. I'm like, that's fucking wild. Like that's cool to me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It's super cool. New York City is that's I think what it is that like makes so many people from New York City that are born and raised here be able to kind of be ahead of the curve and like forward thinking with a lot of things because like there's so much opportunity for you to get out of your environment. Like we grow up being able to go downtown and see all these buildings, like, and all these lights and all this shit that's just like, it's second nature to us. Like, it's nothing. Like, I was showing some people the town yesterday, and they're like looking at the lights in Times Square, like, wow. And they're like, damn, fool, you don't even care about this shit, do you? I'm like, nah, bro, not at all. I'm like, bruh, like seen these goddamn lights so many times. Every time you motherfuckers are astounded at them. I'm like, I'm trying to get paid from putting up the fucking actual like LED screens and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm thinking about. You're looking at the lights. I'm like thinking about how to get paid off of like putting up the lights. You know, like, but like it really does create opportunity for you to get out of your circle. You know what I mean? And like that's exactly what Scream's talking about. Like or my fault, Peace God is talking about is like he's talking about like growing up and being like so desiring that spot of like nah. I had this first, and everybody knows it. You know
And I
that he like
yeah.
he was out this bitch like discovering the whole city, probably like wild young, getting on the train, like where it's just like, where is your parents at, young man? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like doing whatever the fuck he had to so he could get the flyest fit and have the newest music, which is like all that mattered in New York City back then. Like it didn't matter how smart you were, how much money you had, like how like none of that shit really mattered as much as like those two things right
So
there.
basically, if I were to re-paraphrase that, it's cool to be resourceful in New York City.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like that's kind of what it is. It's that like I can out resourcefulness you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
wildly cool. That is such a valuable asset. Like honestly,
Super
as like a
valuable.
characteristic of like your city, I'm gonna go come up with ways to do impossible shit all the time. That's my like lust for life. That's fucking fresh.